I got the new drain pump already put in on the hoses there, as you can see. New coupler I already installed on the motor, as well as on the transmission shaft, so it's ready to go. It's the next day, or next evening, or whatever you want to call it. So the transmission gasket has pretty much dried at this point. So it is ready to now finally be reassembled back into the machine. I don't know if you remember from the original videos I had of this machine, but when I first got it, it originally didn't have a working lid switch in it. And it didn't even have the screws to secure it. So, and I had actually had a brand new lid switch that I bought a few years ago when this is actually funny because I bought this when I had blown the door switch out on our dryer by doing something incredibly stupid and learning a hard lesson of not putting the wrong kind of light bulb in. Fried the lid switch, and I just ended up bypassing, or the door switch, excuse me, on the dryer, and I just ended up bypassing that. But I bought a new door switch to have on hand that I never did end up using or putting in. And with that, I'd actually bought a new lid switch for the washer, because the lid switch on the 92 machine is shot now at this point. And I've actually already bypassed it, so it's not like it's a huge issue at the moment anyhow. But since I'm selling this machine soon here, I figured I'll go ahead and put it in this one, since it didn't already have a working lid switch. And it's, if you look under here, the connector fits through like it should normally, and everything's fine. Although it's not technically the correct part number for this particular model. It's this, because this is a compact unit, or it's a 24-inch cabinet machine instead of a standard 27-inch cabinet, which is what this is normally meant for. So the wire is a little bit longer than, you know, than normal, or than what you would normally use in a machine like this. And actually, I don't even know what, like, exactly the lid switch assembly would have looked like in a machine like this originally. But in any case, I made it work. I just had to bunch the wires up under there, where there's a clip that goes under there where it holds the wires in so that they're not in the way. And it works. So if you listen here closely, I don't know if you can hear the lid switch clicking, but it does work. So I have that installed so that when it goes on to the next owner, it'll work and function like a normal machine would, essentially out of the factory. And yeah, now the gasket seems to hold. I don't see any oil or feel any oil spilled since it's tipped on its side like this. And the oil for the input shaft is good, I think, so we're okay there. Now we can go ahead and put it back in the machine. Slide her right in. And the bolts just go in. You can hand thread them, or hand tighten them to get them started anyways. There's 3 of them. I'll lower the camera here so you can better see what I'm doing. Okay, hopefully now you can see better, from a better angle, what I'm doing here. So I put this bolt in right here, if you can kind of see where my finger's at there. And there's a bolt that goes right here, behind this part of the transmission here. And actually, you know what, I just realized what I should have done was check to make sure the clutch isn't getting in the way of the brake release finger. Which doesn't look like it is, so I'll just move it to the opposite side. And also, whenever you install one of these back in the machine too, you should remember to always make sure the brake is pushed all the way in. So I'll pull this back out real quick just to make sure that's in place, like so. That was kind of my bad. I forgot to do that before fully reinserting this back in. Okay, rotate this clutch into position. That won't be in the way, and now it should just go back in all the way, like so, without an issue. These bolts are 1/2 inch socket bolts that are just standard thread. So they thread in like so. Start them by hand and then use a ratchet to finish them. And ideally you probably have somebody holding this so it doesn't move while you're tightening that. But anyways, now that's fully bolted back in, so we can go ahead and stand the machine back up so it's level. And slide her back where she was. So the next thing is to take this. So there's 2 holes right on either side of this big hole right here where these bolts go. And you'll see on either side of the transmission, where on the side of the coupler here, there's 2 bolt holes that those go into, and so that just screws in, bolts onto the transmission. For the record, once I get the motor installed, we will, I'll hook the pump up and we'll go ahead and test it from there, make sure it works. So when you're putting the motor in, on this, if you can see it here, on this side of the motor, you want to line the coupler up so that it'll line up with the holes in the transmission coupler, if you can see that. So you can see I have the ears on the transmission side at 10 and 2 on top, and 1 and down on the 6 o'clock position, and then same thing on the motor except opposite. I have 1 up on the 12 o'clock position, 2 on the 5 and 7 o'clock or whatever it is positions. So yeah, and then again, it'll be easier to do probably do this without the pump in the way, but I'm not going to bother taking that off just so you can see. But you'll slide the motor in and you'll know when it fits in. You'll feel it. Sometimes it has to be worked in, but as long as you have the shaft and coupler lined up, it should just go right in. And make sure too that these 4 rubber grommets are on the motor on each post. Sometimes if you pull the motors out of these things, the grommets might sometimes come off of the motor and stay stuck on the motor mounting plate holes on the transmission, kind of like that. And if that happens, just pull them off of that and stick them back on the motor, like so. So now I'm going to take the motor, and again the pump is in the way, but we'll just make do and kind of position it so it slides in on the rubber grommets. Kind of hold the pump out of the way with my knee here, but like that. Okay, the motor should just mesh in like so. You'll feel it when it does, because it'll be square and you won't be able to really move it much. And take your clip, and you'll notice on the end it's kind of hard to see it because they're dirty, but they have a kind of a T key, if you will, on the end. You'll reinsert it this way sideways like this, and then there's a slot on the motor plate back there that you'll find that it goes into above the motor there, and get it in there, and then turn, if you can, turn the clip 90 degrees like that, and then push the motor up and snap the clip in. Might be a little tricky to do this kind of like this, but yeah, like that. So it'll clip in right like so, and then the same thing on the bottom. You'll find the same slot in the back there that it'll key into sideways. Insert it, and then turn it. Oops. And this is not the greatest setup. Once you get it in, you'll feel it be able to turn 90 degrees. And then it helps if you push on the middle of the clip rather than like the front of the clip, to help kind of spring it forward so it has less tension snapping onto the motor. And then normally these machines would have these 5/16 nut driver screws that would secure these clips on to hold the motor better secure. But this one, apparently, I never realized that they made them this way. Is old enough, I guess, that they don't even have the holes to mount in the clips there to screw it in. So it's ran its whole life that way. So, you know, I'm not super concerned about it, I guess, as long as it works. Clip's holding enough as it is, but obviously newer machines would have that in, you know, I'd be sure to always put those back in when you take the motor out and put it back in. So then when you go to put the pump on, first of all, plug the motor harness back in like that. You'll see the tab here, kind of click onto that, and it should just go in like that. You'll take one of these clips, which is what you use to hold the pump on, and go behind the pump and rotate the flats on the impeller, on the pump impeller, to line up with the flats on the motor shaft, so that it slides in place like that. Just like that. And then once you have the pump in place, take the retainer clips. It's the same thing with the motor clips. This has another one of those T's on the end that keys into the motor slot right here. Turn it 90 degrees and don't drop it. Like that. And then push it down until it snaps into place. And then the same thing on the bottom clip. If you were smart, unlike me, you would have taken the bottom clip and actually inserted it into the motor key on the bottom before you put the pump on, so that it's ready to go. But you know, whatever. Sometimes I forget. Just like that. And now everything down here is reassembled. Now it's time to put the agitator back in and secure it. Now, normally it would be time to install the agitator assembly. And sometimes, however, you might find it, run into a situation like mine where it is really, really hard to push down for whatever reason, but it just takes a little force. But once you get it, it should go. So the agitator's locked right now because it's in agitation mode. I haven't disengaged it yet. So then you take your 7/16 bolt with the, should hopefully have this rubber seal on it. Sometimes you might get lucky if you have an agitator like this one where you can just reach in and stick the bolt down in there. Other times you might have an agitator that the bolt hole is like way down in there and you can't really get it by hand. You have to use the old paper towel trick where you stick a piece of paper towel on the bottom end of a socket and then have the bolt sandwich that paper towel in between the bolt and the socket to hold it in place while you stick it down in there. I learned that one from fellow YouTuber JK18, and it works every single time in my experience. So shout out to him for that hack, or life hack, if you will, whatever you want to call it, trick. And it just tightens down. You don't want to over tighten it. Snug will work just fine like that. In fact, actually I might loosen that a little bit because you don't want to crush that rubber seal under there. Like that. Then the agitator cap just pops right back on like that, and that's it. Okay, moment of truth. Did I do all this for nothing? I have the camera set here so you can see everything underneath with the light on there. So hopefully try and get a decent view there, halfway decent view, so you can see everything. Yeah, I have it set on spin, so we'll see. Will it seize up? Will it run? What will it happen? Here we go. Well, it's running. I heard some like spritzing noises. I don't know if the camera was able to pick that up. I hear the pump running. The bearings on it are, you know, it's dry, so it doesn't have water in it, and I don't know if I should run it for that long without water in it. So probably should stop it before I burn the new pump up. Well, it runs. I didn't hear any real obviously like alarming noises of any sort. And the good news is too, I don't see any signs of oil necessarily being slung from the clutch, because that's where it would primarily be coming from. So I am going to do a water test with it now. Actually, real quick, I'm going to set it to agitate. Panel vibrating. It agitates like it should. I'll show you real quick. Like it's supposed to. Transmission does sound a little clunkier than I would imagine it should. And I don't know if that's just because it doesn't have anything in it. But now I'm going to put it on spin and we'll see if it neutral drains. Since I've had this apart and put new oil in it, we'll see how it holds. I haven't changed the neutral drain in this machine. I haven't done anything like as far as replacing parts other than the seal and and then obviously all the other parts like the pump and the motor coupler. So we'll see how it holds up. And neutral drain is working. It's a healthy sounding rum 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 we got there. Pump you really can't hear so much because again there's no water or air in it necessarily. And then restart it. Clutch was a little noisy there, but I think, it's just gonna take some breaking in. Battery charger's not staying in place for the camera for some reason. But anyway, well, otherwise, it runs and it shifts and I guess the timer canceled out or whatever. That's what it looks like, yeah. Okay. So I didn't screw anything up. Well, anyways, as I was saying, otherwise it appears to shift and do everything, go through the modes and cycles normally, like it should. So I think I did it right. Yeah. Well, we'll ultimately see once we get some water running through there how what our true bill of health will come out to be. So that otherwise is going to wrap up this part of the video, and next part will be actually running some water through it and testing the seals, make sure they hold, and testing the pump, make sure it's doing its thing, and the hose connections, because I wanted to make sure that that rubber wasn't going to have any issues with reinstalling those clamps back on there. So I just put new worm gear or worm screw, whatever you call them, hose clamps. So otherwise, yeah, that's going to do it for this part of the video series on this machine. So stay tuned and I'll be back with more. Thank you for watching. Take care.